The Las Vegas Raiders have officially wrapped up the final day of the 2025 NFL draft, and they got themselves a quarterback that some people really like. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, man. I don't know if he's going to develop into the long-term solution for the Raiders, but what I will tell you guys is Chip Kelly's been here for 4 months. And in those 4 months, this guy's watched tape. This guy's had multiple opportunities in this draft, right? Shador was on the board. Will Howard was on the board. Quinn Ewers, I don't even know if he ever got drafted. Multiple guys were on the board. And the Raiders went with Cam Miller out of North Dakota State. This is a guy that had 45 touchdowns this past season, 33 touchdowns through the air to only 4 interceptions, 3,200 yards. He had 600 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns rushing as well. He's won 2 national championships at the FCS level. This is a guy that some people actually think has huge upside. And I'm not going to come out here and say that I think he's the future of the Raiders. Who knows what ends up happening. But I do think that when you look at offensive coordinators in the NFL, offensive coordinators will get to a team and say, hey, I want to try developing my own quarterback. I want to get a guy late, and I want to try to develop this guy, right? We saw this happen with Dak Prescott. We saw this happen with Aiden O'Connell recently, right? Teams take quarterbacks sometimes late. Brock Purdy was taken late, right, with Kyle Shanahan. And these coordinators are bringing these quarterbacks late to try to develop them to see if it ever sticks. It doesn't always work out, but it has worked out. And I think with certain coaches, Chip Kelly being one of them, guys that are smart, that understand football, they understand what works, I think there's upside with Cam Miller. I almost think that our offensive coordinator right now, Chip Kelly, who will probably be here for the next 2 to 3 years and could even be our head coach down the line, I think there's a good chance he handpicked Cam Miller. And you know what's interesting with Cam Miller is statistically, the guy had a really good season. Obviously, he was at North Dakota State, all right, FCS level, understandable. But this guy not only had a really good season this past season statistically, but on tape, the guy was really good. And with Cam Miller specifically, I remember during the Hula Bowl process, we're talking about some of the quarterbacks coming out this year. This guy got brought up, and there's a offensive coordinator that was an NFL offensive coordinator. He's not coaching this year though. But last year, I remember when we were in the meetings and this guy was talking about some of the quarterbacks. He said that, hey, you know, among some of the quarterbacks coming out, Cam Miller's one of my favorite quarterbacks. As an offensive coordinator, if I can sit down and develop a quarterback, Cam Miller, Brady Cook, Cam Ward, these would be 3 of the quarterbacks that I would want to be able to bring into my scheme and system and develop. Right? Cam Miller was one of those quarterbacks. This guy could have said anyone else. And Cam Miller was one of the 3 guys that he mentioned. And you definitely see the upside when you put his tape on. Right? When I put this guy's tape on, you see the potential. You see the upside. This guy does a really good job making plays with his legs. You know, you would want to see him use his arm more, but he also is very athletic. He's probably in the top like 5 to 7% in terms of the athletic profile. Very quick, very explosive, will run away from people. But he also has the ability to throw the ball deep. He's a really good arm in terms of throwing the ball deep. There are some concerns that sometimes when it comes to reading coverage, he is just half a second slow with actually getting the ball out and driving that ball. There's a couple of examples that I was shown with Cam Miller back in that Hula Bowl process where there were plays where it was like out routes, dig routes, and he was just like half a second late, and then the drive of the ball, right, the velocity, how hard he was putting that ball in, it just wasn't perfect, right? But again, those are little things you can kind of improve on as you get into the NFL. If you get a good coordinator, that's going to help you as well. We saw what Kyle Shanahan was able to do for Brock Purdy. We saw, Dak Prescott have some success. Jalen Hurts was a 2nd round pick. He's had success. And sometimes it just comes down to the coordinator, right? It comes down to the play calling, the designing. Are you, getting your guy, if he's not super comfortable in the pocket, are you getting him out of the pocket, right? Those are little decisions that a play caller gets to make. And, again, with Cam Miller, I think there's a ton of upside with this guy. Aiden O'Connell is one of those guys that a lot of Raider fans really liked. And, there's definitely moments on tape where I watch Aiden O'Connell and I say, hey, this guy has some potential. He has something there, right? But then there's other moments where you say, this guy's always going to be limited with his legs. Just can't make those plays with his legs, right? It could be 3rd and 9 and the team's going to just flat out blitz 7 guys. And at that point, there's only one thing Aiden O'Connell can really do is just kind of throw up a 50-50 pass. And that's just not going to allow you to win long term, right? Because those are low percentage plays. It might hit on, the first 3 times, but the next 3 times, they might be incomplete passes, right? If you got a guy like Lamar Jackson, if you got a guy like Josh Allen, it just takes for them to make one man miss for them to get out of, get out there towards the right, and maybe they can, find a guy downfield or just take off running, right? Depending on if it's man coverage. Cam Miller has that in his game. He'll make people miss, right? So to me, I think he's a very, very solid option for the Raiders to kind of go forward. I do think this is 100% developmental. Chances are Cam Miller will never be the Raiders starting quarterback. Chances are he'll never develop into that guy. But in the small chance that it does happen, it could happen, actually. There's a small chance it could happen because of the fact that he was obviously one of those guys that coming out of the FCS level, if this guy went to Miami or Tennessee or, LSU, the way Jaden Daniels and Cam Ward were kind of able to, if this guy was able to make that jump, right, if he had that opportunity, who knows how good he could have potentially been. Right, because at the FCS level, he dominated, right? He won championships at North Dakota State, right? The level that this guy was put into, he dominated it, right? He won, right? He was a winner. And he also had 45 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, right? So this guy got it done. So how good could he have been had he went to that higher level of competition? Nobody really knows, right? But I do like the pick. I do think the Raiders get better by adding a guy like Cam Miller late. It'll be interesting to see if the Raiders end up bringing in any other quarterbacks, right? There's still some good quarterbacks that are kind of available out there. This class, the draft class specifically, was always unique because there were so many different players at so many different positions. Guys they're like the 15th player at their position, and they're good players, right? There's potential, there's upside, right? But they weren't going to ever get drafted because of the fact that there were so many really, really, really good players, right? And this class was unique in that way where the top 15 guys weren't like elite. Maybe it was just like the top 3 or 4 guys, but the next 70 guys were all good starting caliber players. And that's kind of this draft, and that's kind of how it worked out, obviously. Cam Miller's a guy that I personally like. We'll see what he develops into, just to kind of talk a little bit more about his tape. I do like Cam Miller's, I do like his arm. I do think his ball placement could have a little bit of work. Right, arm power wise, he can throw the ball deep. He does struggle to drive, so it's something he just has to clean up a little bit. I do like his ability to create plays. I think that's obviously one of the things that separates the great quarterbacks and the non-great quarterbacks. So at least we know he has that in his game. Personally, I like how he reads coverage in like the short to medium, right? Not necessarily long. I think maybe sometimes he struggles to read the safeties, and maybe if a safety doesn't open up his hips, maybe he struggles with, should I throw it right or should I throw it left, right? Unless the safety commits, sometimes I feel like he struggles. And with that's something he has to clean up. If the safety doesn't commit to the right, throw that ball into the right and drive it, right? If you can throw the ball and drive it to your spot, there's nothing a safety can do at that point, right? We'll see what ends up happening with this guy. Again, I think he has a little bit of upside. He needs to continue to improve the ability to drive the ball, especially 20, 25 yards downfield. And then I also think he needs to work on when he is pressured. Sometimes he does struggle getting out of the pocket when he's pressured, or throwing the ball when he's pressured. When a lane opens up, like let's say right through the middle of the pocket, he's gone, right? But when he starts to get pressured sometimes, he does struggle sometimes. And, he has the athletic ability to make people miss, right? So like, for example, if he rolls to the right and let's say you got a guy blitzing off the slot, he'll make that man miss, right? If he sees it and he knows it, he'll make a miss, right? But let's say he's standing in the pocket and the guy's coming to from the right. Sometimes he does struggle to get away from that guy, right? And I'm not sure if he has that Gardner Minshew thing, which was Minshew couldn't roll right. He could only roll he couldn't roll left. He'd only roll right. I'm not sure if Miller has that. We'll have to watch more tape of this guy. Also, don't get confused with the other quarterback that the Raiders drafted. They drafted Tommy Malo. I don't know if that's how you say his name exactly, out of Montana State. I know I'm butchering the name. But they drafted another quarterback, literally 2 picks before they took Cam Miller. The other quarterback they took is actually going to most likely be like a wide receiver, running back, wildcat type of option. I think he was officially announced as a wide receiver, but he's very fast and explosive as well, probably similar to Cam Miller, but I think Miller's the better quarterback. I think Miller's more of that developmental guy. The other quarterback at Montana State to me is more of a wide receiver. And I don't know if the Raiders ever worked him out, but I know other teams that worked him out as a wide receiver, not as a quarterback. Some had him returning punts as well. So it's kind of like Hunter Renfrow, but just a lot faster and more explosive. So we'll see what ends up happening as the Raiders kind of go forward. We've finalized the draft, right? We have all the guys. I don't want to get too much into all the different guys. There were some defensive tackles we drafted. We drafted a linebacker in the 7th round. I'm going to have an entire breakdown of all these different guys, or at least like a recap video tomorrow. There's also some UDFAs that we'll end up bringing in. We're going to have an entire breakdown talking about all these different guys probably tomorrow. But I am excited about Cam Miller, man. I do think he has some upside. I do think he has some potential. He just has to clean up some things, right? But sometimes, you know, the most important thing with the guy is, can he win games, right? When the pressure's on, when you're down by 6 points, you need a touchdown to win the game. Can he get it done? And Cam Miller has shown that he can get it done, right? And I think sometimes those things just matter, right? Just make plays when you need to make plays. You know, if you throw 9 passes and the first 6 are incomplete passes, if the 7th one's a touchdown, that's a touchdown, right? If the 8th one goes for 80 yards, it goes for 80 yards. If the 9th play is a 60-yard touchdown, that's 60 yards right there. Right, it doesn't matter about all 9 plays. Sometimes one play gets you in the field goal range. Right, 140, 50, 60-yard run gets you in the field goal range. And I think the Raiders have definitely prioritized kind of going down this route where you got Cam Miller, who's explosive. You got Tommy Millett out of Montana State, right? He might be a receiver, but he's explosive, right? And we'll see if those guys ever even play for the Raiders. But just going back to some of the other guys, right? Ashton Genty's explosive. We took Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Someone said that he's a DK Metcalf potential type. I think it was Steve Pizzolia. I don't agree with that, right? Dante Thornton's like a stick compared to DK Metcalf. But I understand what he was saying, right? You don't generally see 4'3" wide receivers that are 6'5". And in that instance, I could definitely see what he was trying to say, right? He's a big body wide receiver that could run, right? On any given play, Dante Thornton might just run 50 yards, and if Geno can throw it deep and Thornton can run underneath it, on any given play, you can flip the entire field and be in field goal range. It takes one play, and the Raiders might be in field goal range. One play, Nash and Genty might go 80 yards to the house, right? So the Raiders have been working on adding speed and working on adding talent, and I think they've done that in this class. Now, I don't agree with all the picks. I'll be, honest with you guys. I'll be brutally honest in tomorrow's video specifically, because I definitely don't agree with some of these guys. I don't want to get into it in today's video, but we will talk about it tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys all have a great day today. Unless, we end up signing like some guy that I absolutely love, I probably won't make a video until tomorrow, in which we'll do that recap. But let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.